I'm Caitlin Pham.
I'm Shabin Patel.
I'm Amanda Kelly.
I'm Mike Pullen.
And I'm Dan Hoffling.
Today we're going to talk about
Microbes in agriculture.
Some of the organisms that can be found in soil are fungi, protozoa, nematodes, and bacteria. Some of the detrimental bacteria that are found in soil are Bacillus cereus that contain toxins that lead to food poisoning, and Agrobacterium tumefaciens that causes disease in plant tissue by developing a tumor in the plant and alter its metabolism. Ones that are beneficial to the soil are mycorrhizal fungi and Pseudomonas bacteria. There are also a lot of symbiotic bacteria that make the soil more fertile and give nitrogen to the plants. Some of the nitrogen-fixing bacteria include Azobacter, Clostridium, and which both live freely in soil and fix the atmospheric nitrogen into nitrogenous compounds from the soil. There's also Rhizobia spp, which lives in symbiosis. The purpose of these bacteria is to grow the roots of the plants and fix atmospheric nitrogen in order to help the plants grow in soil where there are no nitrogenous fertilizers available. Since roots of a plant cannot move in order to obtain food, it releases hormones and bacteria in the soil that detect these signals and move toward the plant's roots. Once they reach the root, they either live on the outer surface of the roots or inside the roots. Some of the bacteria feed the plant through ingesting soil, mineral, while other bacteria defend the plant from disease-causing organisms. Bacteria can also cover the roots with biofilm to defend against growth.
After being harvested, produce and livestock are taken to a processing plant to be prepared for consumption. Before processing, there will be microbes still present. Ingesting these microbes is linked to commonly found foodborne illness and parasitic infection, so processing plants must carefully remove these microorganisms before the public can eat them. Environmental conditions that are most important to microorganisms, especially bacteria, include environmental pH, optimal temperature, and the level of moisture. To safely eliminate these microorganisms prior to consumption, we need to disrupt the environmental conditions so that microorganisms can no longer thrive. Lowering the pH of an environment will affect a microorganism's proliferation. Manipulating the acidity of an environment to the minimal proliferation potential is effective in microorganisms that thrive in meat, especially E. coli, Listeria, and Salmonella. Next is temperature. The most effective way to kill bacteria is with heat, but refrigeration adds temperature below that which microorganisms can withstand, while a slower process is safer for food quality. Microorganisms that will be affected by refrigeration are Campylobacter and Clostridium. Knowing the level of moisture a microorganism needs will determine what methods a food processing plant should employ. Chemicals such as acids, nitrates, salts, and phosphates act as microorganism inhibitors that can be applied to food to disrupt moisture levels. Microorganisms susceptible to chemical application include Salmonella and E. coli.
Hi, I'm Dan, and today I'm going to talk about soybean meal and what microbiologists have done to help use soybean meal to help farmers combat the demand we have in this country for meat. In this country, on average, per year, a single person consumes 270 pounds of meat. That's a lot of meat. That's a lot of pressure for farmers to deal with that. So one of the biggest and most expensive and most important parts of farming is when calves are nursing. And typically they need to nurse for 4 or 5 days. What happens if they don't nurse for that long is they get intestinal irritation, and it results in malnutrition. So what they've derived is a process to take a byproduct from soybean oil extraction and turn it into a probiotic feed supplement for little baby calves. So we don't have permission to go into one of these factories. So what I did today was I shrunk down one of these factories, and I'm going to give you a little demonstration on what the process is. So first, we have boiling water, okay? And we're going to put our dehulled soybean meal in the water. And we're going to let that soak I don't know, for an hour or so. Let it get good and soaked. Typically you want 35% saturation for this. We're gonna heat it up as well and cook it. And what that does is denatures the proteins further and makes ingestion of the soybean meal easier for these little calves. So once that's done, we put it on a cooling tray. We cool it down because the microbes we're going to add are mesophiles, and they like a temperature that's good for them to live in. So we cool it down to a suitable temperature, and we spray on our Aspergillus oryzae right here. And we add our Bacillus subtilis here, and we inoculate these two and agitate them together in the soybean meal. So once that's done, we put these in fermenters like so, and we let them ferment for about 48 hours. And what that does is when these things start growing, they create enzymes that break down carbohydrates, and that's Aspergillus oryzae, and Bacillus subtilis, they create peptidase, which breaks down peptides. So what this does is it turns this dehulled soybean meal, which is roughly about 43% crude protein, it increases the protein content by 8%, which is a lot. And it's cost effective because it is a byproduct, so they can get it from these industries for relatively cheap. And you break down those peptide bonds into smaller and smaller peptides and even amino acids, and it gives these calves something other than milk protein that they can eat when they're really, really young. And they can administer this feed at as early as 1 day, which is why farmers love it, because it saves them money and time. So once it's out of the fermenter, all we have to do is it's roughly about 10% saturated with water at this point. We just put it in a hammer mill right here, and we grind it up. So we grind it up, and then we package it 50-pound bags, take it to the farmer, and there you go. Now you have a good way of turning an industrial byproduct into something that can help feed us, save the farmer money, and it's all because of microbiology.
So the way that grocery stores keep customers from eating bad microbes is they keep it refrigerated with the produce and as well as the raw meat, and they also have a misting system up here that mists every few hours to keep the vegetables and produce fresh. And another way they do it is they actually have workers come out and pick up the wilting produce. That's bad, bruised, anything like that. And whenever a customer does take the food home, things that they should do is keep it refrigerated, not too long, because meat takes 3 to 5 days in the fridge, and if it's longer than that, either you want to cook it now or you want to put it in the freezer. But if you keep it in the freezer, you only want to keep it up to like 3 months, or the microbes will continue to grow. Okay. Always check your expiration date. You don't want to eat anything else that's expired, as well as always wash your vegetables before cooking or eating. And then the effects that customers have if they do eat back microbes is they're going to have E. coli, bacillus, as well as they can get food poisoning, diarrhea, vomiting, which can lead to dehydration. And if you have a weak immune system, it can, especially for the elderly, they can get into the hospital, which could be a really bad issue.
As we've talked about, microbes play a very integral part in bringing our food from the local farm all the way to our table that we consume at our dinner. They help as far as the growing process to make the soil better. They help with production and manufacturing, and sure all those processes are going correctly. And then, of course, for self-storage, keeping our food safe so we don't consume bad microbes before we eat them or anything. Microbes are the unsung heroes